Join us for a special edition, Tuesday from 1 to 2 p.m. A call-in show with special guest, County Comptroller Mark Poloncarz, hosted by Jim Anderson and Anna K. France of Conversations About Gambling, and Sam Magavern of The Public Good. That's County Comptroller Mark Poloncarz. This Tuesday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on the Spirit of Western New York, 1080 a.m. WUFO Radio.
Hello and welcome to The Public Good. I'm Sam Magavern with the Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG, which unites over 90 community organizations in the Buffalo area. We're delighted to have with us today County Comptroller Mark Poloncarz in a special one-hour show co-hosted by Jim Anderson and Anna K. France from Conversations About Gambling. In addition to serving as County Comptroller, Mr. Poloncarz is the Democratic candidate for Erie County Executive in the election to be held this November. Our format will be that I'll ask Mr. Poloncarz questions for the first 15 minutes. Then we'll have 15 minutes of questions from you, the listeners. Then Jim and Anna Kay will ask Mr. Poloncarz questions, followed again by questions from you. Mr. Poloncarz, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Sam. It's good to be back on WUFO. It's a pleasure to be here.
PPG focuses much of its attention on issues of poverty, inequality, pollution, and cultural vibrancy. So my questions will deal mainly with those issues, starting with poverty. So, first question on poverty. As a county, we are not unusually poor. In 2009, the poverty rate for Erie County was 13.9%, below the national average of 14.3%. Where we are unusual is the way that our poverty is concentrated in the city of Buffalo. In 2009, the poverty rate in Buffalo was 29%, whereas the poverty rate for the rest of the county was only 8%. As county executive, what would you do to reduce concentrated poverty in Buffalo?
Well, first off, it's a disgrace that the city of Buffalo is the third poorest city in the United States, especially when you consider that we have some of the highest concentration of wealth in Erie County and some of the suburbs, as well as in the city of Buffalo itself. This all comes back to one word: jobs. If you can put people to work, you're going to eliminate poverty over time, and also education. Certainly many of the people who are below the poverty level are those who have not received proper education by going through school systems as they should have. But it does come down to jobs. And unfortunately, where we are today compared to where we were just a few years ago is a disgrace. There's over 10,000 jobs that have been lost in the last 3 years alone. Since Mr. Collins was elected in November of 2007, 14,700 jobs below where we were as of the end of June. And considering the size of Erie County's population, which is below 1 million now, 920,000, it's easy to see that this is a substantial portion of the population. What unfortunately has been happening for some time now are those who are capable, if they can't find the job here in Erie County, they move out of the area to other parts of the country. Sure. And what you have is this unfortunate cycle, as we've seen for the last 2 decades, of our young moving out of the area, especially our educated young. So we're putting them through public schools, putting them through the great universities here, educating them, and then we're sending them elsewhere. And those who cannot afford to go to higher education are unfortunately bouncing around from job to job in a depleted job market. So it really comes down to trying to increase jobs. One of the things I'll be talking about in the next few weeks is my plan with regards to job development in Erie County. Today we actually announced a portion of it, which is not only the modernization of the failed economic development system that's utilized here in Erie County, but that I will be tasking my deputy county executive to focus on job creation and sustainable economic development issues in Erie County. That's what should be the #1 role of the next 4 years of my administration as county executive, is going to be create jobs, not just move jobs from one part of the community to another, which unfortunately you see. Because if you create jobs, you're going to be able to put people to work. And when you put people to work, you're going to be able to reduce the poverty level. And that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Closely related to our concentrated poverty is our racial segregation. The Buffalo metro area is now the 6th most segregated major metro in the nation. About 86% of the region's African Americans live in the cities of Buffalo and Niagara Falls, whereas only 1.2% of the region's white residents live in very high poverty neighborhoods. 25.9% of Hispanics and 21% of African Americans live in very high poverty neighborhoods. Those are the 4th highest and 7th highest rates in the nation. As county executive, what would you do to reduce racial segregation?
Well, once again, it goes back to putting people to work. I live in the city of Buffalo. I live in West Delavan, in an area that probably is not what considered, some people would say, a high affluent area. There's people who are very wealthy that live in this area, and there's people who are very poor. I live in an area where you have a growing Burmese population, an African-American population, Hispanic population. It's nice to see that this, as well as white population, this neighborhood is not segregated. But unfortunately, there are too many portions of this community that are, where you have African-Americans primarily living with African-Americans, Hispanics primarily living with Hispanics. And I think it does not bode well for the future when we have greater segregation over time. Once again, there's a number of things that the county can do. Some things are out of our hands, but there's other things that we can do when we focus on issues not only related to jobs or housing, affordable housing, ensuring that individuals have the ability to move into a neighborhood where the housing is affordable, where you're not getting, you're paying so much for utility costs, where it almost makes it impossible to move into a house that you would need to for the size of the family you may have. I know right now Push Buffalo's been for a number of years now talking about issues related to utility costs in the inner city, especially in areas where you are at a lower than the poverty level amount, which when you live in the suburbs and you think about utilities, well, it's just something you pay and it's a portion of your overall expenses. But when you live in the city and if you're below the poverty level, especially in an older home that does not have winterization aspects to it, you could be paying a good portion of your entire monthly salary or your entire monthly revenue stream that you receive towards utility costs. So we have to basically go into a situation where we try to create a better housing stock. We also try to create a situation where there's more jobs. It's not going to be easy. What we're talking about are decades upon decades of segregation. And I think we've seen in the past that attempts to alleviate that don't necessarily work. I think the best way to do it is to bring people up, to give them the opportunity to advance themselves economically. And then as that happens, as you see it all across Erie County, you will see less segregation. I grew up in the city of Lackawanna. Everybody was in the same boat. My father was a steel worker. Everyone else was a steel worker. The African-American parents, the Hispanic parents, and the Yemeni parents. Everyone was in the same boat. Our fathers were working in the steel plant. It was a very homogeneous community, though it still is segregated in some areas. But we all looked at it as we're in this boat together, so let's work together to try to get out of this boat and move forward. And that's what many of us have done, and that's what we need to do for the rest of the community.
Thank you. We're talking with County Comptroller Mark Poloncarz here on WUFO. I'm Sam Magavern with The Public Good. I'm joined by Jim Anderson and Anna K. France from Conversations About Gambling. I'm going to ask Mr. Poloncarz a few more questions, and then we'll move to questions from you, the listeners. So, Mr. Poloncarz, most of what the county does is run programs for people with low incomes, the elderly, and the sick or disabled. Social services, Medicaid, and mental health services account for about 1/2 of the county's budget. What will you do to improve these programs, not from the perspective of reducing costs, but from the perspective of improving the health, welfare, and self-sufficiency of the people who use them?
Well, one of the things I've done as comptroller is to try to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in the system throughout county government. By doing that, you save taxpayers money, which could be utilized for other services or to ensure that services are being provided properly in the first place. So my number one goal as comptroller has been to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in county government when we provide services, and the same thing as county executive. I'm going to go out there and try to root out the waste, fraud, and abuse, which in many times is not necessarily on the individual recipient end, but on another end. Case in point is Medicaid. You hear a lot of criticism of Medicaid, but one of the things that Erie County is not doing now under the current county executive is aggressively going after Medicaid fraud on the provider end. Just one pharmacy alone in Monroe County, where Rochester is, was found to have overbilled the system by $2 million in just a short period of time. And Monroe County, working with the New York State Office of Medicaid Inspector General, was able to go after that pharmacist and recapture that money. Things like that are happening all across New York State, but are not being done here. That needs to be done. One of the things that disappointed me that this current county executive did was close the 2 health clinics in the city of Buffalo. Those clinics generally served I wouldn't want to say a poor population, because quite a number of those individuals could pay individually or had private pay, but many of over 50% of the people who went to those health clinics were Medicaid recipients. And the average cost for a health clinic visit in 2009, the last year they were open in Erie County, was $88 per visit. Now, the average cost for an individual if they go to an emergency room for a visit is $500. I think it's wrong that we're telling people we're going to close your local health clinic where we're able to manage your care to ensure that we have better disease prevention, and you're going to go to a hospital when you're sick or go to further away to a clinic that's outside of your neighborhood. Chemung County, which is Elmira, at the same time that County Executive Collins closed 2 health clinics in the city of Buffalo, opened a health clinic to work primarily to reduce costs associated with Medicaid recipients. In the first year alone, they believe they saved $2 million. They only had 3,000 visits in those first year alone. The last year that Erie County's health clinics were open, there were over 27,000 visits. So think about it. If it cost a hospital on average, and they're charging a Medicaid recipient $500 for a visit, and if somebody is sick and they don't have a clinic to go to, they go to the hospital emergency room, rather than going to a clinic where it's $88, not only are we going to save a lot of money by reopening one of these clinics, which is what I proposed, using the same type of methods that Chemung County did, and I'll note for the record, it's a Republican county executive who came up with that idea in Chemung County. But not only will we save money by the cost of the visits, but we will also do a better job of managing the care in the primary care for not only women and children, but adults and others who are on Medicaid. And in the end, that's going to save us a lot of money by ensuring better health care for the recipients and less cost overall for the taxpayers of Erie County.
Thank you. You're listening to County Comptroller Mark Poloncarz on The Public Good on WUFO 1080. And if you have questions for Mr. Poloncarz, you can feel free to call us at 837-1112, 837-1112. But in the meantime, Mr. Poloncarz, I want to ask you about the cultural funding that Erie County has done through the years. In his 2011 budget, the current county executive made a sudden change in funding for cultural organizations when he chose to fund 10 of the largest organizations at their previous level, while zeroing out roughly 37 smaller organizations, including all the organizations with a specifically African-American focus, such as Ujima Theater and African-American Cultural Center. How would you handle funding for cultural organizations as county executive?
Well, first, what the county executive did was a disgrace. It wasn't the 10 largest cultural organizations that he funded. He just chose 10, some of them in more Republican legislative districts because the Republican legislators wanted to see those funded. What happened at the African American Cultural Center was a disgrace. Agnes Bain's done a great job there over the years. His cuts put at risk certain things like what was held this last weekend and will be held next Sunday, the Pine Grill reunion that the African American Cultural Center funds. It's put at risk many of the smaller entities that relied on that funding to just balance their budgets. Now, when it comes down to it, the sad part about it is the money was there. There was sufficient funding in the budget to pay for the culturals. What the county executive did was he just doesn't prioritize the culturals. He over-budgeted in certain lines that he controls, like fringe benefits and workers' compensation amounts. My office identified over $8 million worth of those over-budgeting of lines that he controls so that he could then come back and say, I don't have sufficient funding to pay for the cultural organizations, or the libraries, or probation department, or for that matter, the rodent control, which has been cut recently, which is a health department risk. So what happened was the county executive just doesn't prioritize culturals, just like he doesn't prioritize libraries. That is something that will be a priority in my administration, because when we're talking about a cultural tourism campaign from our local Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is based on cultural tourism, at the same time you're eliminating funding and basically shutting down some of these organizations, you're only shooting yourself in the head. Not the foot, in the head. Because if you're relying on building a revenue base through increased tourism and then you're shutting down the organizations that provide the tourism, you're wrong. Chris Collins may think that there's 10 strongest are the 10 that he's funding, but there's a lot of other organizations that deserve funding, and just some of the ones that you noted are key. Pine Grill Reunion brings people in from all across the country who come in, go stay in hotels over the weekends, and spend a lot of money in town. They may not be like the Albright Knox Art Gallery, they may not be like the Buffalo Zoo, but the African American Cultural Center, through the entities that it funds, not only at the center, but the organizations and events like Pine Grill, are key and are the kind of things that we need to move our community forward.
Thank you. We're taking your calls at 837-1112, and my co-host Jim Anderson is fielding the calls. And Jim,
we got a caller on the line. Caller, you there? Caller?
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. This is Peter calling from Hamburg. And I just wanted to say hello to Mr. Poloncarz and wish him a lot of success in November. But my real question was about county infrastructure, roads, bridges, things like that, that is just kind of crumbling locally. And I'm wondering what Mr. Poloncarz's plan is to reinvest in Erie County's infrastructure.
Well, thanks for calling, Peter. Erie County's infrastructure has been crumbling for some time now, which is kind of sad because, as you may know, we received over $100 million of stimulus funding, which the county executive, especially when he first received it, was proud to say he wasn't going to spend a penny of it. And as I think we all know, when it goes back to jobs especially, the stimulus funding was supposed to put people to work. It was to save jobs in governments or to create jobs. And here's an example where we could have created jobs as well as fixed a large portion of our crumbling infrastructure across Erie County. The county executive likes to say that every road is fixed, every bridge is open. Well, I think it's fair to say you can drive all over the South Towns especially. I think you said you were from Hamburg, and you will see county roads that are literally crumbling. Now, I find it quite ironic that in an election year, after completely ignoring the calls of folks in the South Towns with regards to repairing Eden Evans Centers Road, now the county executive is out there repairing it and finally using stimulus money to do it. I mean, it's a good thing to put people to work, and it's a good thing to repair a crumbling infrastructure, but you shouldn't do it just in your election year. You should be doing it all around. And one of the things I want to do as the county executive is to go in there, work with the Department of Public Works to truly identify the roads and bridges that are in terrible shape, need to be repaired, and try to get those fixed as soon as possible. It's not easy because, of course, you got to pinch pennies here and there, but I think it's fair to say that our residents shouldn't be driving on roads that are unsafe. They shouldn't be driving over bridges that are falling apart, and that's what's unfortunately happened over the last few years.
Caller, you're on the air. Hello? Hello, are you there? Oh, go ahead.
Hello?
Hello?
I wanted to ask the gentleman, he's not in office as the controller yet. He's running. Is that correct?
No, actually, I am the controller. I'm running for Erie County Executive. I've been the controller since 2000.
Executive.
Yes.
Okay. And the next question that I have is about you bringing jobs to the black community. You saying how those jobs will be to help us in the black community? Well, in my perspective, I realize that no matter what jobs y'all give us, they don't really help us. We're the laborers, and we're the one that's helping y'all. So you make it seem as though y'all doing something for us, when in reality, we're the ones doing something for y'all. So what you really need to do is stop giving all the right answers and give what we really need, and that's the truth.
Well, I think it's fair to say that what I am giving you is the truth. When we have a population loss, and most of the population loss is dependent on job loss, I think it's important that we restore jobs in this area. I agree with you. The government can't do everything. I'll be the first to admit that. As controller, my goal has been to try to create a better government so it's less cost to the taxpayers in the long run. But there are certain things that government can do. And I think it's quite apparent I disagree with the county executive in the view of what government can do. Government shouldn't be there to be the sole producer of jobs in an area. I agree with that. But government should be doing all that it can to create an environment that creates jobs. And that's one of the things that we can do in Erie County is create an environment. When I say Erie County, I mean Erie County government that makes it a better place to live, work, and raise a family, and therefore create jobs.
Caller, are you there?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Poloncarz. This is Miss Doyle from the Criterion newspaper. I was wondering if elected as Erie County executive, do you feel that under your administration, culturals in the African American community will be funded under the same level as they were before Mr. Collins made the cuts? And the second question is, do you have a campaign headquarters in the city of Buffalo? And I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
Ms. Doyle, it's good to hear from you. It's good to hear from you, certainly, because you certainly have seen you at many public meetings across the community. Regarding the first question, is my intention to try to restore the cultural funding to all, not only the African-American related ones like Ujima and the Afro-American Cultural Center, but all culturals to the level prior to Mr. Collins' cuts this past year. I'm not going to differentiate between the different culturals. There was a very good system in place in which an independent body made the determination of what culturals should have received the funding. And basically the county executive just threw that system away and made a determination on who he wanted to fund, and I think that's wrong. So number one, I will be trying to restore the cultural funding across the board to the pre-2011 levels. And then with regards to campaign headquarters, my campaign headquarters is truthfully just outside the city limits. It's on Harlem Road, 2861 Harlem Road on the corner of Genesee. So it's very easy to get to from all across Erie County. I think that's what most people have to remember. When you're running a countywide race, you have to be a representative of the county, and we tried to centrally locate the headquarters, so it made it very easy for people in the city or the suburbs to get to. It's 2861 Harlem Road, and it's right near the corner of Genesee, so it's very easy to get from pretty much any part of Erie County.
Caller, are you there?
I am.
All right, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Poloncarz. My name is Bessie Millhouse, and I would like for you to send a lot of yard signs and some literature about your stuff to my house at 345 Leroy.
Ms. Millhouse, I'll be proud to do that. We certainly will send that information out. I don't want to ask for any more information in case anybody out there is listening, but we have your address and we'll be glad to, and I appreciate the support. Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Caller, are you there? There you are. You're on.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Good afternoon. This is Betty Jean Grant, the high soon-to-be county executive. And I want to say for those who need signs, my store, East Ferry store, will be a sort of a drop-off for signs. I did it for Mayor Brown 6 years ago. We had hundreds of signs there, and people just came to the store at 1055 East Ferry Street and get the signs for those who don't get them directly from you. But, Mark, I want to say two things. One thing is I'm glad to see that you're considering reopening one of the clinics. As you know, the people who attend those clinics came from all over Erie County, not just City of Buffalo. And I think it's one Mr. Collins' biggest mistake is assuming that clinic was only used by City of Buffalo residents when, in fact, people from rural and suburban areas used it as well. Also, I want to say, too, that the cultures, you know, the African American Culture Center, they have been in the top 10 for years. This past year, the county executive chose to remove them, put in another culture, and then made the announcement that he only funded the top 10, which is not true because African American, based on the amount of money received over a generation, should have been included in the top 10. As you know, the Pine Grill this past weekend, I did a survey, and I'll be 30 seconds, I'll be out. People came from California, they came from North Carolina, because we're talking about the tornado down there. They came from Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, and county executive. So they were staying in our hotels. And that's one of the argument I had. When you give money to the African American Culture Center, you don't just give it to them. You give it to those events like Pine Grill that they help to co-sponsor. They also help to co-sponsor certain events, you know, allowing them to use their name and stuff like the Juneteenth. So I'm glad to see that you're running. I'm ecstatic to see you're running, and I'll do all that I can to help you, because in helping you, it will help the city of Buffalo, and it'll help those people in Erie County who lost their daycare subsidy, who lost their WIC because another county is doing our WIC, who lost the use of those free clinics. And I'm glad to see that you're talking about opening one, because like you said, Chemung County did it, and they used federal stimulus money to do it. While they were opening their clinic, we were closing two of ours. I'll hang up, but I want to say that I'm glad to see that you're in the race, and I'm going to do all I can to make sure that you're victorious in November.
Thank you, Legislator Grant. It's been my pleasure to work with you over the years. I look forward to working with you as the executive when I'm elected on November 8th. What Betty Jean noted, certainly with regard to clinics, and one of the reasons why my plan is to reopen one, is they made money for the county. They were not money losers. They were self-sufficient. They made money for the county because not only was a sufficient amount received from the Medicaid recipients, but individuals had insurance and private pay that went to the clinic as well, just as Legislator Grant noted. So it really made no sense for the county executive to cut it. It shows his priorities. He really believes that there's nothing good the government can do, and we should be turning over almost every service possible to the government, just like he eliminated rodent control programs. So if you have a problem with rats in your backyard, regardless of where you are in Erie County, there's really no one in government to handle that anymore, and rodents are a public health risk. Now, they've certainly, anybody who's ever heard of the Black Plague, or Black Death, the plague, that was based on rodents. The larvicide program, he eliminated that, which is mosquito control. At the same time, for the last few years, we've been talking about West Nile virus. It just goes to show me he doesn't prioritize the health of the citizens of Erie County. He doesn't care about them. And he doesn't care about them when it comes to health clinics. Otherwise, we would be doing that to reduce costs associated with health care. And I look forward to having the opportunity to be the executive so that we can restore these necessary services and, in the end, save taxpayers money.
Thank you, Mr. Poloncarz.
You got one more call. There you are, caller. You're on. Hello?
Good afternoon, Mr. Poloncarz. I hope that you will be victorious in November, and I hope that the people get 100% behind your campaign, because you are going to make the difference in this city, whether we're going to go forward or we're going to be stagnant like we have been for so many years. And I'd like to say that the African Culture Center was started by Malcolm Ernai, a member of my family, and he was starving because he could not get the type of money that he should have been paid for his job for so many years. And finally, he went into a terrible disease that was debilitating, Lou Gehrig disease, and they didn't have any money to pay him for all his great work. He started that place about 40 years ago, approximately, and he did great things for the city, and he's never been recognized at the scope that he should have. And I hope that the people will put up some type of sign as far as saying that Malcolm Ernai was the starter. I'm thinking that the lady who took over did a great job to keep it going when he got ill. But as far as I like to say, that you do not run a government that people pay taxes for, who have earned their money by so many hard jobs, and you are a businessman who is a very wealthy businessman who is saying you're going to run it like a business. It's got to be run 50% like a business when it comes to taxpayers' money, and 50% as far as for humanistic reasons. Like he got to look into the humanity of this city to get rodent control. We should have rats in this city in this day and time. This is for poor countries, third world. It should not be more lights on the street. It should be more cameras to catch these thieves who are breaking into people's houses.
I would agree, ma'am. I think it's fair to say Chris Collins said he was going to run Erie County like a business, but he actually has. He's run it like a failed Wall Street business, in which all the fat cats on the top come out with big salaries. At the same time, he cut libraries. At the same time, he cut rodent control. At the same time, he cut clinics and the African American Cultural Center. He gave his employees, some of his highest paid employees, raises, and that's wrong. If you raise taxes and cut services, you better have an austerity budget, and Chris Collins didn't, because he gave some of his highest paid employees raises, and it just shows how out of touch he is with the hardworking men and women of Erie County.
Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning. This is Pat. I say, hey, ho, ho, it's time for Chris Collins to go. We can't take it no more. And I will be getting with Betty Grant to see what I can do as far as supporting your campaign. Keep up the good work. You got to be in it to win it.
All right. Thank you, Carl. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. You've been listening to County Comptroller Mark Poloncarz on The Public Good on WUFO AM 1080. This is Sam Magavern from the Partnership for the Public Good. I'm getting ready to pass the torch to my co-hosts, Jim Anderson and Anna K. France from Conversations About Gambling, and they're going to continue the conversation with County Comptroller Mark Poloncarz. Just want to remind you to listen to a recording of today's show and last week's show with County Executive Chris Collins. And for information about all the important issues facing Buffalo, visit us on the web at www.wufo.org. www.ppgbuffalo.org. That's ppgbuffalo.org. You'll find publications, links to resources, and a citizen toolkit to help you get involved in making a better Buffalo. Next Tuesday at 1 p.m. on The Public Good, we'll be talking with Creighton Randall from Buffalo Car Share about an affordable way to have access to a car without the expense and trouble of owning one. The Public Good is every Tuesday at 1 p.m. on WUFO 1080. With that, I want to turn it over to Jim Anderson and Anna K. France to continue our conversation with Mr. Poloncarz.
Indeed. Thank you, Sam. And the conversation does indeed continue as conversations about gambling. But today is a conversation with the county controller, Mark Poloncarz, and you can join us at 837-1112. And without further ado, hi, Anna Kay, and we're going to move on into it. We have some questions. If you call us online, don't be upset if you have to wait a little bit. You will get your call in, and let's roll it, Anna Kay.
Okay. First, thank you so much for coming in and joining us.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for asking.
And I want to remind everybody of something that Sam just said. This is our second visitor to the station who is a candidate for county executive. Last week we had Chris Collins on the air. Those programs were taped and will be available through the PPG website and also through the Conversations About Gambling website. So if you missed all or part of either of these conversations, go back and listen to them again. And we have made a point of asking some of the same questions to both of the candidates, so you will have a chance to compare their answers. So we'd like to begin, because this program is called Conversations About Gambling. We'd like to begin with some questions about gambling, but when we open the lines, anything goes. There's a wide range of issues that anyone is welcome to bring up with Mr. Poloncarz. First, could you tell us what is your position on gambling, particularly casino gambling in Erie County?
Well, in general, I'm not per se against casino gambling in general across the country. I don't see the value of it in Erie County. I've come out and said I don't think that the reason that casino gambling was allowed for Erie County, not just like in Niagara Falls or in Salamanca, was for business development. Well, I don't think you're going to see a tremendous amount of business development around a casino in downtown Buffalo. I think it's fair to say that it's taking revenue from other sources that would have been spent in Erie County and is just putting it right into the gambling casino. I have nothing against the Senecas. I think that they've shown through their Niagara Falls casino and their Salamanca casino that they can be very good businessmen and women when it comes to the casinos. But I don't think this is going to be the silver bullet that people have said, and that's why I've not been in favor of it. And the other thing that's quite interesting, too, is Erie County and the city of Buffalo were supposed to be deriving revenue from those casinos. That hasn't happened because, of course, the debate that's going on with regards to the Senecas collecting sales tax on cigarettes. So if I had my choice, I would say that I don't think we need to continue the casino in the city of Buffalo. I think it's good to have it in Niagara Falls, but when you've got 3 casinos in a very short area or space of mileage, all you're doing is ending up taking money from the community that would be spent for other entertainment resources and resources, truthfully, that are needed in our community.
Okay, thank you. And going on from there, what problems do you see with having casino gambling in Erie County? Well, how would you address those problems?
Well, of course, the number one thing that happens as a result of casinos is addictions to gambling, and of course the impacts that has on family life, the impact that has on jobs. Before comptroller, I was an attorney, and when I first started practicing law, one of the things I used to practice in was bankruptcies, and invariably someone would come in for a bankruptcy to see me, and it was often related to a casino gambling addiction they had, or debts they had related to casino gambling. So I think it's fair to say that for every person who walks out of a casino a winner, most people walk out losers. They actually walk out with less money than when they walked in. And that is an impact on family life. And of course, it results in the county potentially having to spend more money on social service issues if people lose all of their savings in a casino, which unfortunately does happen. If people are put in a situation where it breaks apart families, then that's not a good thing. It's like any addiction. I mean, whether it's alcohol addiction, drug addiction, there are addictions that can have an impact on a community because it impacts the costs associated with the community going forward. Because sometimes we're in the position as a county, especially when we provide social services, of having to help some of these folks out. Often the ones that we're helping out are the ones who don't have the addiction. the family members who were left behind. And I think that's why we have to try to do as much as possible to work with all sorts of agencies, not only in county government, but in the not-for-profit sector, to try to reduce as much when it comes to gambling addiction as possible.
I think we already have some calls coming.
Yeah, we have a
James.
call on. You want to... Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I'm on the air. Oh, Mr. Poloncarz, I want to ask you a question. Have you had privilege of driving through Central Park lately?
Actually, I just was in the Central Park area of the city of Buffalo lately, and the old Central Park Plaza is a disaster. Absolute
disaster.
disaster.
It's a disgrace to the city. Are they going to do something about that plaza?
Well, I've actually talked in the past with Bishop Bronner of Elam, which of course is right in the Central Park area, about what could be done. I think it's fair to say that the only thing that could probably be done that would really make a difference would be to condemn the property. There's an out-of-area landowner that owns it, New York City landholder, I believe, and basically is using that plaza as a tax write-off for the profits that landowner makes on other real estate holdings in other parts of the country. And that's wrong because it's just destroying a neighborhood. The Central Park Plaza is a disgrace. It needs to be torn down. It needs to be condemned, and that property should be used for a public use or should be used for a greenfield, brownfield redevelopment so that we're bringing businesses into the community, not what really is nothing more than a haven of inactivity on retail end and an activity on drug end. It's wrong.
Well, are they going to do it? Are they going to do something with it?
Well, as of right now, nothing's being proposed. I've talked, as I said, to Bishop Bronner about it. I don't believe the city of Buffalo has any plans to condemn it, and if I am the county executive, it's something I certainly will look at because it's a large area. It's a large area that could be used for industrial development. I've even heard some people say it should be converted to parkland, but in its current form and state, it's just a disgrace that is just destroying the property values of that community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you on the air? Thank you. Yeah. Caller?
The landlord is in court. Council member Denal Smith said at a meeting a week ago that Central Park, the whole problem and the issue has been referred to court, and currently they're in court trying to get some resolution.
Well, that's good to hear, Legislator Grant, because, as I said, that Central Park Plaza area is an absolute disgrace, and I feel bad for the residents around there because that was a thriving plaza, one of the thriving shopping centers in Erie County for many years, and now it's become nothing.
Right. Like I said, he said if people be patient because it's owned by, private as opposed to government, that you got to go through the legal process, and right now he's definitely in court in Buffalo. Okay?
Thank you, Legislator Grant.
Bye.
We have another gambling question. With the recent development of family-friendly activities on the harbor front, how do you regard the proximity of the adult activity of casino gambling?
Well, the actual location of the casino is at least far enough away from the waterfront activity that it's really not noticeable. I think it's fair to say that it would, once again, it'd be my goal to not see a casino in Buffalo. I just don't think it's going to be the silver bullet that people think. It's only going to bring more issues to the community. I support the Seneca's right to have the casino in Salamanca. That is their own sovereign land, and I believe that as we've seen, there has been an increase in development as a result of what's happened with the casino in Niagara Falls. But in the city of Buffalo, in the heart of our downtown, basically put sovereign land in the heart of downtown Buffalo, I did not believe was in the best interest of this community. I think it's far enough away from the waterfront, so it should not play a direct role in that. I think we do need to continue to support waterfront development. I certainly applaud Congressman Higgins for all the work that he's done to provide funding and to put pressure on a number of entities, including the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, to redevelop that area. And now we're finally seeing thousands of people coming down to downtown Buffalo. And I'm glad to say they're coming to downtown Buffalo for the waterfront, right, and spending their money down there rather than other parts.
There are several questions that came in by email, and I'll just run them by. This is from Laura from Buffalo. She states, on last week's show, Chris Collins seemed to think there was only poverty in the city of Buffalo. I'd like to know what Mark Poloncarz will do to address poverty, not only in the city of Buffalo, but in the rest of the county, too. How will he create jobs throughout the county when he becomes county executive?
Well, once again, it does relate back to jobs. I think we have a failed industrial development system in this community. We need to work on a situation in which we're really going after jobs outside of the area. And not only retaining the jobs we have here, but going after jobs outside of the area, which it doesn't really seem like we do. And that's what industrial development agencies are supposed to do. They're supposed to bring jobs into the community. And that's something we have not done. We need to also ensure that we have a master plan, at least in thought and as much as possible in fact, so that we're not just constantly pushing new job development outside of the urban core. And what you see often are new business subdivisions that are created that are further and further away from the urban core. Originally, they started in the city, then they moved to Cheektowaga, and then they moved to Amherst. Now they're moving to Clarence. Now you see new business parks being developed in other parts of areas that used to be rural. We need to try to keep as much of that. Reuse the brownfields we have in the city of Buffalo, which of course is where the vast majority of the people of Erie County live, which is in the city and the inner ring suburbs. And I think people always want to be able to live as close to where they work as possible. And if we can redevelop brownfields, which is one of the things that we need to do, that have been sitting for a long time doing nothing, that's one of the focus. I mean, I grew up in the city of Lackawanna. My father was a steel worker. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had a steel spoon. And I look at when I drive by the Bethlehem Steel Complex and still see this massive brownfield that needs a tremendous amount of environmental remediation, but it's got so many assets that other parts of the country wishes it would have, such as the water access and all this acreage. We need to be working on that. We haven't been doing that, and that's what I would like to do as county executive.
Indeed. Megan from East Aurora writes, people often agree that business and public health are both important characteristics of desirable places to live and work. What can you do to help leverage private investment in preserving the natural areas and the family farms our area is known for and relies on for economic stability and healthy communities?
Well, one of the things that I understand is that Erie County is the sum of all its parts. Urban, suburban, and rural area. And right now what you've been dealing with, especially in the last 10 years, is an urban area which has been hurting and a rural area which has been hurting. I think the county executive forgets that just because maybe things are fine in his suburb, that doesn't necessarily mean things are fine in all of Erie County. And if we're not focusing on rural issues just like we are on urban issues, the county is hurting. Because if one part of the county is not in good shape, well, then invariably the entire county will not be in good shape. The county executive went after the 4-H programs in the rural areas, which help, of course, with family farmers. That was a disgrace itself, because that was some of the smallest amount of money you'll find in the Erie County budget, but it's tremendous business development and educational development for our young, not only in the rural areas, but there are people in the 4-H programs even in the inner city. And I know they were tremendously impacted. So it's the kind of things like that shows a disregard for truthfully, the constituents that the county executive represents. I'll say this. He's forgotten the golden rule of what an elected official is supposed to be. A public servant. Someone who works on behalf of the public, not dictates to the public what's going to happen. I'll never forget that. I've not forgotten that as comptroller, and I'll never forget that as your county executive.
I like that. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I would like to commend Mark for running, and I'm definitely in favor of it. I've been knowing you for years. He worked on a case with one of my family members. I can't mention it because it was a high-profile case, but we won, and I'm praying. I'm going to do whatever I can on my part to help your campaign, because it's time for the county executive to move. We lost so many jobs behind him. My family members worked at Buffalo China for years, over 600 and some employees. And the county executive, he was the prime suspect of the closing of Buffalo China. He and all his cronies received big money. And that plant, when it closed down, owed the government over $1 million some. I don't know how they got away with it. Nobody investigated. And I think it's terrible.
Well, part of the problem, caller, and first of all, thank you for the kind words. Part of the problem with industrial development in Erie County is there are very few what are called clawback provisions. So in other words, if a business entity is provided sales tax assistance, property tax assistance through a pilot payment, or they actually, and they're supposed to create jobs as a result of that, and they don't, there really are no provisions to go back and take that money back. And I think that's one of the things I've been advocating for some time, is we need to have clawback provisions so that if a business receives assistance from the public, and they don't like to call it, but it's corporate welfare. It's assisting corporations by paying them or providing them assistance, which can be good. I'm not saying it's bad in all circumstances, but if you provide the funding and assistance to a company and then they don't meet the employment requirements or the job requirements of new jobs they were going to create, well, then maybe government should go in there and say, why did we give you this money in the first place if you didn't do what you said you were going to do? Because of course, we hear many times, especially from those way on the right wing of the political spectrum, that welfare is bad, but they always agree that corporate welfare is good. I think sometimes we need to go after the bad actors that take our public money and don't do what they're supposed to do, which is create jobs. That's wrong.
Hear, hear. Caller, you on the air.
Yes, excellent show once again, Jim, and, callers just took my thunder because I was, wanting to pose a question to, the gentleman about the stimulus money that the county, received. What happened to that money? Was that money used for stimulus? Obviously not, but, maybe you could give us some more details on exactly what happened with that money.
Thank you, Carl.
When the county received additional types of stimulus assistance starting in 2009, we received over $40 million in 2009, another more than $40 million in 2010, and received approximately a little over $20 million this year. So we're talking over $100 million worth of stimulus assistance. The county executive proudly announced in his 2010 State of the County that all of the money from the stimulus assistance rolled over into the surplus. He didn't spend it. He was proud to say that. And I thought that was very sad because, of course, that money was supposed to go and stimulate the economy, hence why you call it a stimulus package. Since then, he has spent a little bit of the stimulus money, especially this year, in his re-election year. I think he finally realizes, I think I need to look good in the public's eye, so I'm going to start spending some of that stimulus money. He used a little bit of it for the libraries, used some of it now also for the cultural organizations, after it had a huge impact when he said he wasn't going to. He's starting to spend some of it in road and bridge projects, and he also used some of it to pay down debt. Well, paying down debt's nice because then you save some interest costs, but when the real goal of that was to create jobs, and you weren't creating any jobs when you pay down debt, I think he used it for the wrong purpose. And it's fair to say he refused to spend it for the longest time. So that's wrong. When we were provided assistance, remember, this is your money, folks. This is our money. The money came from government, didn't come from the private sector, to assist Erie County in not only keeping services that were needed open, but creating jobs. Well, the county executive closed services like the daycare program for working moms and dads, the WIC program, the health clinics. So he put people on the street, laid them off. He put people in a situation where they made it tougher for them to actually get the assistance they need. And then, of course, he didn't spend the vast majority of that money, thereby meaning that he could have put hundreds and maybe even thousands of people to work when you're talking $100 million, and he elected not to do that. I truthfully believe that is not only wrong, it's a violation of the public's trust. It's a violation of what President Obama wanted that money for, what Congress passed it for, and Chris Collins may think he can control a lot of things, but when you're talking about the public's money and taking it and spending it, or I should say not spending it, when the public demands that it be put for job creation, that's wrong.
Indeed. I got another email from Greta in North Buffalo. She says, as a resident of the city of Buffalo that has experienced firsthand the effects of high unemployment rates are having on my community, I've been very frustrated that Chris Collins not only doesn't seem to care about the conditions within the city of Buffalo, but also fails to recognize that joblessness in the city affects the areas outside of the city too. If you are elected county executive, will you make inner city development a high priority in your administration?
I think we talked about this earlier, and the answer is short, yes, I will. We need to be redeveloping these brownfields in the city of Buffalo. We need to be putting people back to work. The easiest way to address poverty issues is to give somebody a job. It's to ensure that they have proper education and they have the ability to have a good paying job that then puts a roof over their head and food on their table. As I said, I grew up in Lackawanna where there were over 20,000, at one point about 25,000 people that were working at the Bethlehem Steel plant, and those were almost all, not all, but almost all blue-collar jobs. And it gave a lot of people the opportunity to advance themselves and to advance their family. And that's what I came from. I came from a family where my father was a steel worker, my mother was a registered nurse. First she raised us, then after we were old enough she went back to college to become a nurse. And I came from a blue-collar household. Both sides of my family were blue-collar, and what everybody always wants is to have a better life for their children. And we used to be able to do that when we had a strong manufacturing base. It's not necessarily the case now. We need to rebuild our industrial development areas of Erie County. We need to certainly put it in an area where the city of Buffalo is at the forefront.
Indeed. I got one more question, then I want to go back and have Anna Kay and Sam bring in any additional questions and comments. This email question says, Chris Collins and his friends in the Conservative Party worked to torpedo countywide planning. Now, 2 years later, our governor has established a regional economic development council, and stakeholders will have to scramble to develop county and regional plans for the fall deadline. If we had gotten going on this 2 years ago, wouldn't we be much further ahead in identifying and planning our regional priorities? Isn't this an example that Chris Collins is out of step with our governor?
Yes. Short answer, yes. When the regional planning proposition was before the legislature and the county executive, I was in favor of it. The other thing that was interesting about it, it wasn't mandatory. It wasn't going to mandate to communities how planning was going to be done in Erie County. In some ways, we probably even need that to move forward, but it wasn't even a mandatory system. It was for recommendations, and some of the suburban leaders disagreed with it, even some urban ones. I know the mayor of Lackawanna, Norm Polanski, was not in favor of it, and as a Lackawanna boy, I used to go and talk to Norm saying I thought he was wrong. And I think the county executive was wrong for vetoing that legislation, because it would have at least created a system. It put the skeleton in place, so to speak, to have the regional planning that we need. The governor sees it. The governor understands it. That's why he created a regional economic council to work with his office on planning issues, and I certainly support that. And I'm looking forward to working on that council. And when I become county executive, because the county executive has a position and a seat on that, so I look forward to sitting on that council starting in January 2011 and working with the governor and others to advance and advocate on behalf of the people of Erie County for more jobs and smarter regional growth.
Indeed.
Mr. Comptroller, it's been another hot summer. Scientists predict that because of greenhouse gas emissions, average temperatures in Erie County will rise 3 to 5.5 degrees by the 2050s and 4.5 to 8.5 degrees by the 2080s. Rising temperatures are expected to have a great many negative effects on public health and the economy. Many counties around the nation have adopted climate action plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and a plan for hotter temperatures. Are you concerned about climate change, and what steps will you take to respond to it?
Well, I am certainly concerned about climate change, and unfortunately there's too many disbelievers out there who don't believe that climate change is actually in existence, and all you have to do is look at the records and then see that our temperatures keep on going up to understand that, yes, we are having significant climate change. I don't know enough about what's being done in other counties to say that's what I would do. It's certainly something I would be willing to look at and examine, and if it appears to be the right thing for Erie County, I think it's something that we would certainly advance. But as of right now, I don't know enough about what these other counties are doing to say yes or no that I would support that.
Caller, you're on the air.
Yes. Another question. I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan. I have not heard anything from the county executive as it relates to his plans on how we're going to keep the Bills here. How are we going to build a new stadium? What is your vision for this whole process? The Buffalo Bills, brings in millions and millions of dollars. What is your vision for the Buffalo Bills and understanding? What is your vision?
Well, the lease for the Buffalo Bills expires during the next term of the county executive. I believe it's actually expires in 2013, but it's really the end of the 2012 season that is the last season that would be under the current lease. It's my understanding the Buffalo Bills were not going to negotiate any portion of the lease until the labor issue had been resolved. Well, it's now been resolved because we now know the Bills and all the NFL teams are back to work. I'm looking forward to watching the Bills games. There's no doubt about that. But I think it's fair to say I can't say what the Bills have been requiring or asking because I don't think they've really put anything on the table at this point. They were waiting until the labor unrest had been solved. It's been solved. As county executive, of course, one of the things I'm going to do is to try to negotiate the best lease possible and ensure that the Bills stay in this community. That is a high priority, to ensure that the Buffalo Bills stay in this community, and while doing that, to get the best lease possible for the people of Erie County. I don't know what the Bills are asking. I don't know if they're saying they want a new stadium or not. Considering the amount of work that was put in the last 15 years, and we still put in at least $1 million on an annual basis into Ralph Wilson Stadium, I don't think that a new stadium is necessarily needed, but I think it's fair to say the Bills are always looking for increased infrastructure, better infrastructure at the stadium. And in the end, it also comes down, we have to have the businesses, we have to have the individuals who are willing to buy the luxury boxes and buy the seats to ensure their continued status here. I know we have the individuals because they continually sell out, even though they sometimes haven't had the best teams, but we also need to ensure we have the businesses in place that will pay for the luxury boxes that are necessary to sustain an NFL team in the 21st century.
I don't have season tickets. Caller, you on the air.
Yes, Mr. Poloncarz, this is Miss Doyle again. I wanted to know if there are any debates planned between you and Mr. Collins. And secondly, I wanted you to know that I support you, and I will be getting signs from Miss Grant to put all around my house. I'll hang up and listen.
Well, thank you, Ms. Doyle. I appreciate that, especially coming from someone in the community who's as well respected as you. It means a lot. I have called for 3 debates. Last week, I called on the county executive to debate at least 3 times, once in the city, once in the north towns, once in the south towns, and one of those debates to be a town hall meeting format, and have all 3 of those debates televised. We have not heard back from the county executive. His campaign staff indicated they'd love to debate us, but they did not commit to the debate schedule that we asked for. I think it's fair to say we've reached out to the television studios, and they would love to be able to televise a debate for the people of Erie County. I'm looking forward to debating him. I hope he will. I think the people of Erie County deserve to see the 2 of us on stage together talking about the issues. And for those of you who are out there, if you would like to help out on my campaign, you can go to my website at markpoloncarz.com, or you can just call our campaign headquarters number at 896-2680, and we'd be glad to have you help out on a daily basis, whether it's phone calling or writing letters to your friends and family and telling them that November 8th is the day they have to get out and vote, because that's the day the general election is being held. And I feel confident if you do that, I'm going to win this year.
Caller, you're on the air.
With every seat caller, it's a price that we have to investigate, Mr. Poloncarz. It's under... it's in Erie County. I called everywhere about this hideous place at 228 Kingsley Street, and it's a senior citizen building, and it is filthy roaches that could cause people to have AIDS or HIV, and the seniors, that is our greatest resource in this area. We have lots of seniors here. And they are the best generation. They fought the wars. They shouldn't have to live like that.
What was your name, ma'am?
I'd like for you to have an investigation of that building. Okay, and I also like to commend that little girl who called in and talked about the problems of no jobs. And to let her keep calling and have other young children to call in. Thank you, sir.
Caller, don't hang up yet. Want to ask you some further information.
Well, you said it was 228 Kingsley?
It's a enemy man. I think it was owned by Reed once.
All right, I will look and find out what...
Gethsemane. I know Gethsemane.
I will take a look at who the owner is and see if in contact, because one of the things my office does as the county comptroller is we're the independent taxpayer watchdog, and we have our whistleblower hotline. And if people see an issue, they can contact our whistleblower hotline. Even if it's in a private
room, the filthy carpet in when you walk in there.
I'll take
bags at the window that's supposed to be draperies. Just
I'll have my folks look into it, and if it's something that can be resolved on the county level, we'll do it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, caller. Well, as it always is, there's never enough time, but it's always a good time to have you, Mark, talk to the citizens, and certainly the whole hour has proven that the citizens enjoy talking to you. And there is maybe 1 or 2 minutes left, and you can have it, and then we'll say bye.
Well, first off, it's, as I said, thank you for having me here today. It's always my pleasure, and I've been on a number of programs on WUFO before, especially with Mr. Kirkland, who was on before. I've certainly been on his corner in the past. I live in the city of Buffalo. I choose to live in the city of Buffalo because of the great community it is. I could live anywhere in Erie County as comptroller, and I live in the city of Buffalo. I want to see this community run better. I believe that it can be run better. As comptroller, I'm the chief fiscal watchdog. I know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. I know how we can be doing things better in Erie County. Erie County deserves a county executive who understands that you measure the strength of the local economy not by the size of your pocketbook, but by whether people can make ends meet. Erie County deserves a county executive who understands being a public servant means working on the public's behalf. They don't have that now. Erie County deserves a county executive who understands strong libraries and the arts not only enrich the mind, but can be an economic investment tool for the future. They don't have it now. But with the support of the people, I feel confident that they will when I'm elected the next Erie County executive on November 8th. So thank you for your time. It's been my pleasure to be here.
And we thank you, and we thank the listeners. And on behalf of Sam Magavern and the Partnership for the Public Good and Anna Kay and myself, Jim Anderson, Conversations About Gambling. And Anna Kay, have some words before we get out of here.
We're very pleased that you were able to join us, Mr. Poloncarz, and don't forget that we will have a very special guest on Conversations About Gambling next Tuesday at 1:30.
That's right. Henry Taylor will be here, and you need to be here, too. It's a conversation we all should be having, and we want to tell you have a good day and certainly reminisce on the conversation we've had today. And go to our websites, ppg.org and conversationsaboutgambling.org, and you can hear both interviews, both with the current county executive and with the candidate for the county executive, county controller, Mark Poloncarz. Thank you all. Have a great day.